Indianapolis, Indiana. It is game 4 of these best-of-5 semifinals. The Las Vegas Aces, a 2-1 series lead.
They said the WNBA Finals would be history in the making, but what unfolded was a funeral for the league's credibility. The arenas were half empty, the cheers replaced by awkward silence. And the painful truth echoed louder than the bounce of a basketball. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA flatlined. This wasn't just a bad turnout. This was a full-scale collapse, a league that spent all year bragging about growth suddenly begging people to show up for $6 finals tickets. $6? That's not a championship price tag. That's a clearance sale on relevance. The players looked stunned. The fans looked bored. And behind the fake smiles of the executives sat sheer panic. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. Not after the record-breaking season. Not after all the victory speeches about growing the game. But as soon as Caitlin Clark and the Fever were gone, so was the pulse of women's basketball. From the moment Wilson and DeWanna Bonner walked into those arenas, the energy felt off. The lights were bright, the banners were hanging. But something essential was missing. The roar, the electricity, the anticipation that Clark had brought everywhere she went. Instead, there were empty rows, polite applause, and the uneasy hum of realization that this was not the spectacle fans had been promised. The league had hyped this matchup as the ultimate showdown. MVP versus MVP. Experience versus dominance. But what they got instead was a ghost town. The cameras couldn't hide it. You could see the red seats gaping like open wounds. The broadcast audio captured the hollow echo of a dribble that no one cared to cheer for. This was the WNBA Finals, the supposed pinnacle of women's sports, reduced to the atmosphere of a preseason scrimmage. Wilson, usually unflappable, could barely disguise her disbelief. Cameras caught her shaking her head during warm-ups, muttering under her breath, "This is the finals." It wasn't arrogance, it was frustration. How could it not be? The league had promised her that she was the face of the new era, that she and Bonner and Alyssa Thomas would carry the torch. But when the torchbearer, Caitlin Clark, was gone, the flame went out completely. Fans didn't tune in. They didn't travel. They didn't care. And the ticket sales told the entire story. Prices dropped to single digits, and teams resorted to Black Friday-style promotions just to fill the lower bowl. The humiliation was real. Players worked their entire careers for this stage, only to perform in front of yawning seats and muffled claps. Social media exploded with mockery. $6. That's not a finals ticket, that's a parking fee, one fan posted. Another showed a panoramic shot of the empty arena captioned, "You chased away the star who filled every seat. Now enjoy the echo." That video alone racked up more views than the official WNBA Finals highlight reel. The optics were devastating. This was supposed to be the league's crowning moment, but instead it became a mirror reflecting its biggest failure. All season long, veterans had downplayed Caitlin Clark's influence, calling her hype manufactured, her fan base a fad. Yet here they were, living in the aftermath of that denial, surrounded by silence. Even the broadcasters couldn't spin it. They tried to focus on competitive matchups and elite defense, but the emptiness drowned out the narrative. When cameras panned the crowd, the directors cut away instantly. No one wanted the audience at home to see how sparse the turnout really was. But the internet saw everything. Photos spread like wildfire, side-by-side comparisons of packed Fever games versus barren finals arenas. One viral post summed it up best. "You miss her yet?" The fans didn't just vanish. They followed the reason they had shown up in the first place. Caitlin Clark wasn't just a rookie, she was the revolution. The ratings told that story clearly. When she played, millions tuned in. When she didn't, the numbers crashed by nearly half. Game 1 of the finals drew less than half the viewership of Clark's semi-final appearance. For a league desperate for validation, that was catastrophic. But worse than the numbers was the realization behind them that the WNBA's growth had been real, but fragile, because it was built entirely on the back of one player the league's own insiders refused to fully embrace. Behind the scenes, panic spread. Executives whispered about what went wrong. Sponsors started asking hard questions. And networks began quietly scaling back future commitments. This was supposed to be the year the WNBA broke through, the year it proved it could sustain national attention without gimmicks. But Caitlin Clark wasn't a gimmick, she was the heartbeat. And when that heartbeat stopped, the league's pulse disappeared with it. Inside locker rooms, frustration turned to fury. Bonner and Wilson felt betrayed. They had believed the hype, trusted the league's promises that fans were here for women's basketball, not just one star. But as Bonner said in her post-game interview, you work your whole life for this moment. You want to feel the energy, the love, but look around. Her words hung heavy in the air, even surrounded by championship banners. It felt hollow. The echoes of what used to be a celebration now sounded like a warning bell. But the warning wasn't just for the players, it was for the league itself. The disconnect between leadership and fans had never been clearer. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert tried to put on a brave face, offering robotic platitudes about competitive balance and league parity. But no one was buying it. Reporters pressed her during the finals press conference, asking the question that hung over everything. Was the league paying the price for how it handled Caitlin Clark? Engelbert stiffened, deflecting with the kind of polished denial that only deepened the embarrassment. This isn't about one player, she said. But the silence that followed said otherwise. Clips from that moment went viral within minutes. Fans flooded social media with the hashtag #FireEngelbert, demanding accountability. Even mainstream analysts joined in. You can't chase away the person who built the house. Stephen A. Smith thundered, and then complained that nobody's visiting. That line summed it up perfectly. The WNBA had spent the season pretending it didn't need Clark, and now it was learning how wrong that assumption was. The optics of it all were brutal. Empty stands, empty slogans, empty promises. The players who once laughed off Clark's popularity were now begging for the attention they mocked. And the fans who felt alienated by that attitude weren't coming back out of sympathy. They'd moved on, back to supporting Clark, back to the energy she brought. Back to the only storyline that made women's basketball feel alive. Inside the front office, Engelbert's panic turned into desperation. Sources leaked that emergency marketing meetings were being held. Executives scrambled for damage control strategies. Some proposed flash sales, others suggested celebrity halftime shows, but nothing could mask the truth. You can't sell passion. You can't fake fandom. The WNBA had built its season on Caitlin Clark's magic, and when she was gone, the illusion crumbled. Meanwhile, analysts on ESPN, Fox Sports, and independent podcasts tore into the league's failure. This isn't a basketball issue, one said. It's an ego issue. They were right. For months, players and pundits insisted Clark's attention was unfair, that she was stealing the spotlight. But the reality was that she had earned it. Every record, every sellout, every highlight that went viral, it wasn't a fluke, it was impact. And instead of embracing it, the league resisted it. Now, the price of that arrogance was being paid in empty arenas and embarrassing ticket prices. Even sponsors started getting cold feet. Executives from major brands reportedly called league officials concerned about the optics of the finals disaster. We invested in momentum, not silence, one said. They weren't wrong. The WNBA's big selling point to corporate America had been growth. But how do you sell growth when your championship seats cost less than lunch? Fans could feel the panic too. During Game 2, the league tried hiding the problem by zooming in on players and avoiding crowd shots altogether. But cell phones exposed the truth. Panoramic videos of near-empty arenas flooded Twitter and TikTok, captioned with brutal sarcasm, "Finals sponsored by crickets." Those clips went more viral than the game highlights themselves. And yet, through all the noise, one message rang louder than anything the league could spin. Caitlin Clark was the difference. Not just in numbers, but in energy, in narrative, in belief. She gave fans a reason to care again. Without her, the WNBA looked lost, adrift in its own denial. By the end of that disastrous Game 2, even players were whispering what everyone already knew. The WNBA had made a fatal mistake. They thought the league had grown beyond needing Clark. They thought the wave of interest she brought would stick around no matter what. But fandom isn't loyalty to a logo, it's loyalty to connection. Clark gave fans that connection. The league gave them excuses. When Engelbert tried once more to assure the press that everything is fine, the world had already made up its mind. The WNBA's finals weren't a celebration, they were a cautionary tale. A reminder that arrogance can kill momentum faster than failure ever could. And as the final buzzer sounded in front of half-empty stands, the truth echoed louder than the applause. Without Caitlin Clark, there is no WNBA. Without Caitlin Clark, there is no WNBA. It started as a whisper, but by the morning after Game 2, it had become a roar, fire, Engelbert. 3 words that spread through social media like wildfire, echoed on talk shows, splashed across YouTube thumbnails, and even murmured inside WNBA locker rooms. It was no longer just about bad attendance. This was about betrayal, denial, and the league's refusal to face its truth. The WNBA's biggest nightmare had come to life. The finals, their crown jewel, had become a national joke, and the commissioner was standing at the center of it, drowning in her own spin. The headline that defined the disaster came from one viral tweet that read, "You can't brag about growth when your finals. Tickets cost less than a cup of coffee." It was brutal, but it was real. The optics were catastrophic, and the fans were unforgiving. When Kathy Engelbert walked into her post-game press conference that night, the air was thick with tension. Cameras clicked like hammers. Reporters didn't come to hear empty platitudes, they came for accountability. Her opening line was textbook PR. "We're proud of our athletes and the competitive spirit they've shown." But that wasn't what anyone wanted to hear. The first question hit hard. "Commissioner, how do you explain the lowest attendance in modern WNBA Finals history?" Engelbert hesitated, then delivered a line so tone-deaf it practically guaranteed her own trending hashtag. "There are scheduling conflicts," she said. "We're competing with football season." The room went silent. The look on every journalist's face said it all. They weren't buying it. The follow-up came instantly. "Isn't this really about how the league mishandled Caitlin Clark's rise?" That was the moment the mask cracked. Engelbert's smile faltered. Her eyes flickered with irritation. "This isn't about one player," she snapped. But that sentence, meant to protect her authority, only confirmed what everyone already knew. It was absolutely about one player. Within minutes, clips of her response went viral. Fans flooded Twitter and TikTok with memes, calling her commissioner of denial. The hashtag #FireEngelbert began trending globally. Even mainstream networks joined in. ESPN analysts called the finals a PR disaster, while Fox Sports openly questioned whether the league could survive without rebuilding trust with Clark's fan base. Meanwhile, inside the arenas, the crisis deepened. Game 3 was supposed to be a redemption night, a chance to restore some dignity. Instead, it was a repeat of humiliation. Entire upper decks were blocked off, curtains draped over empty sections, like a stage hiding its own shame. The broadcast crew avoided wide shots altogether. The few fans in attendance sat in awkward silence, their cheers swallowed by the cavernous emptiness. One viral video from a fan sitting courtside showed it all. A tight shot of players battling on the court, followed by a slow pan upward row after row of empty red seats. The caption read, "WNBA Finals, where echo meets excellence." It was meant as sarcasm, but it captured the essence perfectly. The finals had no soul. Wilson and DeWanna Bonner, once the league's proud veterans, were now visibly drained. Their post-game faces told a story of exhaustion and disbelief. For Wilson, this was supposed to be her crowning moment, a chance to cement her legacy as the face of the league. Instead, she looked broken, not from losing on the court, but from losing the crowd. In one emotional post-game clip, she admitted quietly, "We worked too hard for it to feel like this." Bonner's frustration was more raw. "You fight all year, and it feels like nobody cares," she said, her voice trembling with anger. Those weren't just quotes. They were confessions of a league that had lost its way. But while players were feeling the emotional toll, the business side was facing a financial one. Sponsors who had proudly paraded their logos during the regular season began calling emergency meetings. Corporate partners wanted explanations. "We invested in momentum," one representative reportedly said, "but this looks like meltdown." Networks weren't far behind. Multiple insiders leaked that ESPN executives were reevaluating future WNBA broadcast slots, worried the finals had tanked their ratings guarantees. One analyst put it bluntly on live TV, "Without Caitlin Clark, you don't just lose viewers, you lose investors." And that's exactly what happened. The numbers that leaked after Game 2 were devastating. Viewership had plummeted by nearly 60% compared to fever playoff games. The WNBA had spent years begging for legitimacy on television, and now, after its most hyped season ever, it was staring at the worst finals numbers in a decade. Social media didn't soften the blow, it amplified it. Fans started sharing screenshots of Ticketmaster listings showing final seats going for $6. Sometimes even less after promo codes. "Finals tickets cheaper than Starbucks," one post read. The memes rolled in by the thousands. The internet had turned the league's biggest night into a punchline. Inside the WNBA offices, chaos erupted. Engelbert's team of PR advisors scrambled to regain control. Draft statements, scripted interviews, damage control emails, all flying back and forth. But it was too late. You can't put out a fire when you've spent all year pretending there wasn't any smoke. The players had mocked the very person who brought them national attention, and now the fans were holding them accountable. The league had ignored the momentum Caitlin Clark gave them. And now, with her gone, they were reaping what they sowed. What made it worse was the hypocrisy. For months, veterans like Cheryl Swoops, Angel Reese, and Aja Wilson had gone out of their way to downplay Clark's impact. They called her attention media bias, her popularity privilege, her hype manufactured. But now that the spotlight had dimmed, those same veterans were begging for fans to show up. It was a moment of poetic justice so sharp it could cut glass. The same league that mocked her now missed her. The same players who rolled their eyes at her interviews were now staring at empty stands and asking, where did everybody go? Fans remembered every quote, every interview, every dig. They hadn't forgotten the smirks, the side comments, the tension that followed Clark everywhere she went. When Wilson and others dismissed her hype, fans took note. And now, those same fans were watching from home or not watching at all. Because why would they? They weren't invested in the politics. They were invested in the story, in the spark, in the reason to care. Clark gave them that. The league's old guard took it away. The truth is, the WNBA never had a Caitlin Clark problem. It had an ego problem. The veterans wanted respect. The commissioner wanted control. And everyone wanted credit for the league's sudden rise, except the one person who actually made it happen. Clark's arrival had been a gift. Sold-out arenas, record-breaking viewership, new sponsors, new fans. But instead of embracing her, the league treated her like a threat. They wanted her spotlight, but not her shadow. And when she left, they realized too late that she was the light. Meanwhile, Engelbert was spiraling. Behind closed doors, she reportedly held emergency meetings with marketing teams, demanding solutions. "We need to change the narrative," she said in one leaked internal memo. But you can't change the narrative when the narrative is reality. Ratings were collapsing, sponsors were whispering about pulling out, and fans were chanting for her resignation. No slogan could fix that. The league's credibility had evaporated, and Engelbert's refusal to take responsibility only deepened the divide. Even players started distancing themselves from the commissioner. Anonymous sources told reporters that multiple athletes felt Engelbert had lost the locker room. Some wanted her gone outright. "She doesn't get it," one player said. "She doesn't understand what the fans actually want." What the fans wanted was simple authenticity. They didn't want spin, they wanted connection. And Clark gave them that in ways the league never did. As the finals stumbled toward their anticlimactic conclusion, the internet crowned a winner, Caitlin Clark. Even from home, even out of the playoffs, her presence loomed over everything. Her name trended higher than the finals MVP. Her old highlights outperformed new ones. ESPN's own SportsCenter posted a fever replay the same night as Game 3, and it got double the engagement. That was the ultimate humiliation. The league's biggest night couldn't even compete with its absent star. By Game 4, the atmosphere was downright eerie. The players looked like they were going through the motions. The energy was gone. The crowd, what little of it existed, felt disinterested. It didn't feel like a finals. It felt like a funeral. Even Engelbert's public appearances drew boos. Every word she said felt hollow. Every statement a reminder of how disconnected the league had become from its audience. She tried one last PR move, announcing a fan appreciation initiative, but it backfired instantly. Appreciate us by listening to us. One viral reply read, "Bring back the reason we watched in the first place." By the end of the series, the damage was irreversible. Sponsors were furious. Networks were reconsidering. Fans were disillusioned. Players were divided, and Engelbert was isolated, the face of a failed vision. The WNBA had dreamed of a finals that would showcase its strength. Instead, it showcased its weakness, its pride, its politics, its inability to celebrate success without resentment. The final buzzer didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a reckoning. And as the confetti fell on a near-empty arena, the sound of silence was deafening. Empty arena, the sound of silence was deafening. The sound that broke the silence wasn't applause, it was a notification ping. Thousands of them, lighting up screens across the country as one headline exploded everywhere at once. Sponsors freeze WNBA deals amid fallout. Engelbert under fire. That was the moment the illusion shattered. What had begun as whispers of disappointment had now evolved into a full-scale reckoning. The empire that once bragged about record growth was now collapsing in real time, live-streamed by the very fans it betrayed. Social media didn't just report the downfall, it celebrated it. Clips of empty arenas and tone-deaf press conferences flooded TikTok. While one brutal edit showed the league's glossy "We're Rising" commercial dissolving into footage of vacant seats. The caption read simply, "You rose and then you fell." Behind closed doors, chaos reigned. The WNBA's corporate offices, once buzzing with optimism, now felt like a bunker under siege. Staffers were working around the clock to manage sponsor panic. Nike had paused its post-season partnership campaign. State Farm pulled digital ads mid-run. Gatorade delayed its WNBA Finals recap commercial indefinitely. In boardrooms across New York and Los Angeles, executives whispered what fans already screamed. The league had mismanaged its golden era. Every brand that had spent the past year aligning itself with the Caitlin Clark effect was now demanding answers for why that momentum had vanished overnight. Emails leaked. Memos circulated. One line from a furious sponsor rep went viral after being quoted anonymously. "We signed up for growth, not damage control." The press tore into Engelbert like sharks in the water. Major networks stopped sugarcoating their language. CNN ran the headline, "Commissioner loses locker room." Sports Illustrated called it a masterclass in self-sabotage. The Athletics in-depth report was even harsher. The WNBA didn't lose Caitlin Clark. It pushed her away. And in the middle of this storm, Engelbert made the fatal mistake of doing another interview. "This isn't a crisis," she said on national TV. But her calm demeanor came off as arrogance. The clip spread faster than wildfire. Within hours, #CrisisEngelbert was trending. Fans compiled side-by-side comparisons, her statements versus the plunging stats. And the internet delivered its verdict: denial. What hurt most for the league wasn't just the numbers. It was the perception that the people running women's basketball didn't understand women's basketball. They didn't understand fandom, storytelling, or authenticity. Caitlin Clark's arrival had ignited something organic and emotional. A bridge between college passion and professional prestige. Fans wanted to believe in her journey, not a polished PR slogan. Yet instead of embracing her, the league's leadership treated her as a problem to be managed. And when the fans realized that, the emotional contract was broken. Players began speaking out, some in frustration, others in regret. Lexi Hall posted a cryptic tweet. "You don't know what you have until it's gone." Kelsey Mitchell reposted an old Fever highlight with a broken heart emoji. Even Aaliyah Boston, ever diplomatic, admitted during an interview, "We need to do better connecting with the fans that came here because of her." That was the first public acknowledgement that everyone knew the truth. Caitlin Clark was the heartbeat. Caitlin Clark was fading. Then came the bombshell article from the Washington Post inside the WNBA's Civil War. It described rifts between veteran stars and the younger generation, between players who wanted to modernize and those who resented the attention new talent received. It claimed that multiple agents had warned Engelbert months ago about locker room hostility toward Clark and were ignored. It wasn't just neglect, one source said. It was ego. The story dominated headlines for days, sparking talk shows, YouTube breakdowns, and even late-night monologues. The WNBA, which had spent years fighting for relevance, had finally become mainstream conversation, but for all the wrong reasons. Meanwhile, fans didn't wait for reform. They revolted. Fever supporters organized massive online campaigns, flooding every WNBA post with the same comment: "Apologize to Caitlin." Some even began tagging sponsors, demanding transparency. The hashtag